Most of the Hong Kongese, like me, actually are trilingual, meaning we're actually fluent or native in Cantonese, Mandarin, and English. And this basically are the three languages you need to mingle around the region. Let's say lawyers. There's no other place on earth that I see that there's lawyers with, let's say, qualified in more than 2 jurisdictions. In Hong Kong, you have US qualified, and then you're, of course, in English qualified, and then you're Hong Kong qualified, and then sometimes you get China qualified. So you have this global perspective. So that's very important to actually get your talents here, because you want a channel or a bridge that connects your needs and then the local needs. So from corporate structure perspective, it will be the Canadian company, and then the Hong Kong company, and then the Chinese company underneath. That will be the very typical structure. And then different investors on the top layer, the Canadians, a different investor will consolidate their investment on the Hong Kong level. And then Hong Kong level will take all the money put together and then apply for the Chinese company set up there. That's the most typical structure now, but I do see more a trend of going a direct investment into China.
The direct import program became very important when the big box chains decided that they also were going to go direct to the factory, so that they were going to go into China and they were going to set up their buying offices in Shenzhen or Dongguan. And they told their vendors in Canada and the US, we're not going to issue any more international letters of credit. We'll only issue domestic letters of credit. So what happened was the people who were then selling to them, they had a huge problem because they couldn't get paid by Walmart, say, unless they had a Hong Kong company where they could accept payment here. And we would set up a Hong Kong limited company for them, which would then take over their vendor number with, say, Walmart, with Canadian Tire, with Home Depot, with Home Hardware, etc. And then what would happen is Home Hardware would place the order with the Hong Kong company, which is a subsidiary of the Canadian company, and XYZ Hong Kong, which we would run and manage, would then place the order on the factory in China. So Home Hardware would issue a letter of credit to XYZ Hong Kong, and very often we would either issue a new letter of credit or a baby letter of credit to the factory in China. The funds, the profit would be made in Hong Kong. It would be taxed at Hong Kong rate, which again are significantly lower than Chinese rates. And that would be effectively the direct import program. So why is it called direct import? Because the product actually goes direct from the factory in Dongguan directly to Home Hardware's depot, wherever that may be. But all of the financial paper transactions happen in Hong Kong. And that actually is still quite a big business for Hong Kong, for service providers.
I think in the next 10 years and 20 years with China, I think there will be many opportunities for Canadian companies, especially in the clean technology and green technology sector. If you look at China closely, they are actually undergoing a lot of thinking and then trying to also implement into policy how to change China's infrastructure, from transportation to hospital, medical, to just as simple as air cleaning. And I believe that, and I see myself that Canadian companies have all of this. Canadian companies are great in R&D. You have great technology. It's just its potential is not fully realized in Hong Kong or China. My best advice is very simple. One size doesn't fit all. And then that any companies should really do their homework.
The one thing I would say is read, ask, ask, ask.
You need to understand how the system works, and once you understand it, you need to actually come up with strategy to make it work.
They need to make sure that they're looking at what other people are doing, what competitors are doing that are the same size.
You need to have a very clear business plan, short-term, long-term, and then you need to also understand what is your risk appetite, your resource, cash flow. All this must be thought through. I have seen many Canadian companies, they said, oh, I have a Chinese contact in China or Hong Kong. They can set up everything and get the license and sell everything for me. It's a friend, it's a relative. Don't worry, there's some Chinese person. That is the biggest mistake I've ever seen. Because company formation or accounting or all these matters are legal related. You don't want to do it wrong at the first time. You want to do it right because it's costly, time inefficient to correct them.
Many SMEs or larger companies in Canada have very close working relationships with professionals. But the problem with that is that a lot of the professionals handle domestic work. They don't handle international work.
I would really suggest to do your homework, but engage proper professional.
I would definitely talk to the Trade Commissioner Service, both in Ottawa and in Hong Kong, and make sure that I was on their list, that I was talking to them. Great deal of information, great deal of expertise. You, at your peril, ignore Hong Kong as a gateway to doing business in Asia and in fact the world. Don't ignore Hong Kong unless you don't want to make money.